Welcome to Adopted Girls Podcast.
My name is Hawa.
Fatmata Warfield over here.
And thanks again for joining us on this amazing journey, listening in on what we have to say about our experiences as adoptees. And today we have a really fun topic for you guys. The topic for today is coming to America. What our experience was like moving from Sierra Leone, West Africa, to the promised land, to the money shots, to heaven. Yeah. To America, aka United States of America.
Until you actually come here.
Until you actually come here and you notice that, okay, well...
It's not heaven.
It's not heaven. It's not all that it's wrapped up to be. So I'm going to let Mata take it off, start, of what her experience has been like coming to America, the physical journey from flying, traveling time from Sierra Leone to America, what that was like, and how she felt after she landed on this strange land.
Yeah, I'm gonna write strange land. Never been here before. So before, never been on a plane, had no idea. So that was really scary. I don't think I mentioned before, while I was getting adopted, another child who's not my brother was also adopted with me. We're not biologically related. We just got adopted together. So mom was the one that came to get us, my adopted mom. I decided to stay back in the States because we have, they had children of their own. They had 2 biological children of their own. So he had to stay back and take care of them. So my mom came at us, and now that I'm telling the story, something funny just came up in my head. And I remember, during the process, we were in the courthouse, and I had to use the bathroom.
In Sierra Leone? Or
in Sierra Leone. In Sierra Leone. Let me just get that in real quick. I had to use the bathroom, so after I used the toilet, this is when I got introduced to toilet paper.
Oh yeah,
because Africans don't really
toilet paper.
Things have changed.
Things have changed nowadays, of course. But we use water and
soap to wash up.
And we don't need to get to
After I got done peeing, she hands me over the toilet paper. And I grab it, right?
What do I do with this?
And I look at her and I'm like, what am I supposed to do? So she's making this motion. Wipe with it. I'm like, wipe. There's no water around, wipe with it.
Oh my
so
God.
I wipe it. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so weird.
Yeah.
What is this? And I felt so unclean. That's just one of the many funny things that I had to get used to being in the States. Now I'm completely used to it. So it doesn't bother me as much.
I honestly, I don't remember the first moment that I used toilet paper, to be honest with you. But now that you're saying that, I never thought about that.
But anyways, after my mom came and got us, we flew to the States. And my dad picked me up. My dad and my siblings, missed meeting everybody, they picked me up in a camper. It was my grandparents' camper, so they just wanted to make it extravagant and big for me to welcome home. And then I remember the airport, and then we had to go down an escalator.
Oh my God, I remember that. Yes.
I had to go down an escalator, and I was terrified. I'm like, what is that? I am not getting on that. Then my mom once again had to teach me how to do it. It's like, you just step on, I'll hold your hand. Yeah. So that took a while, and people were just standing looking at us. And here's this white woman with these 2 black children. And she's trying to teach them how to get on the escalator. But yeah, I got on, and I also met my grandparents there as well. So I met everyone. They took me to a coffee shop, and this was a family friend that we knew that owned a coffee shop, and everybody was there. And when I say everybody, there were people that knew about my parents adopting. And so it was like a big community thing.
Right.
And people were following the story and rooting for us. And I'm pretty sure they also helped make donations for flying back and forth, because flying to Sierra Leone to the States it's really expensive.
It's very expensive flying to Africa. And just for people to understand, when she's talking about everybody, our adoptive family, they were heavily involved in the church. And so there's a community aspect where it's the missionary. So everyone is behind her, knows the stories, following up. They're almost the whole church is adopting you.
The whole church basically, and the school that I was going to. Yeah. It was the church, it was the school, so everybody knew who I was and knew more about me than I felt like I knew about myself. But anyway, we went to this meeting grounds. The coffee shop was named Meeting Grounds. Okay. And we went there, and it was just a whole bunch of people, and I was terrified. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this? And this is so freaking scary. Why am I here? And everybody's like, hi, Famata, hi. Everybody's like, kind of touch me, hold on to me, and hug me. And I'm like, I don't know who any of these people are. And later on, my mom kind of reflecting back on it, she's like, that was probably not the best idea. In traumatizing you like that, bringing you in, and then all these people, you have no idea who they are, trying to grab on you and like treat you like a shiny toy, new plaything or something like that. And I was like, but I'm glad that she was able to admit that and be like, yeah, that was not a good idea. But I also understand why she did that, because there were so many people that were invested, and she just wanted people to finally see us and meet us.
So I same experience as far as the amount of time that it took to come to America. It was, I think I ended up going first. It was, okay, so just for a backstory. So my adopted mom ended up coming to Sierra Leone. She stayed with me for about like 2 weeks. So that's where my adopted mom met Fatmata's adopted mom. So they built a relationship together. When we got adopted, basically, if your adopted family is gonna be staying in Sierra Leone, they usually stay there for like a couple of weeks. They might stay at a nice hotel, get to go to the orphanage a little bit to visit the kids. So I think at some points we interacted, but I'm not exactly sure. But anyway, so our parents did meet at that point. And I remember when we were traveling, we ended up going from Sierra Leone to Senegal, which is next, the country over, right? And we took a helicopter.
We did too. Went through Senegal as well.
And it was so scary because it was like, first of all, it's like very
unstable,
like
unstable. Over the water.
The doors were open. It was just like, I was so scared. I'd never been on a plane before, and I was now on this helicopter that's the doors open. You could see everything below, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I did not trust anything. I'm with this random white lady at this point who I'm like, I don't even know who she is, but I'm told I'm supposed to trust her, and I'm told she's my family.
She's your new mom now.
She's my new mom, so I'm just gonna go along. It was just a lot of going along with it for that time, right? And so then we flew, me and my mom, and we ended up going from Senegal to New York. And then from New York, that's where, you know, the airport experience of like the escalator. I remember just being so scared, not knowing when to like go get on the step for the escalator. And it just took like 10 minutes to actually get it down. And I remember people around us were like kind of a little bit after I actually got it.
Really?
And they were like, oh, okay, you know.
A little support group.
Yeah, exactly. And from New York, we ended up coming to California. That's where I met my adopted dad. He ended up meeting us at the airport. I did not tell you the experience when I met my adoptive father. So my adoptive father, he is part Native American and part I guess Caucasian, and skin is filled with like a lot of freckles, especially when he was like younger. Freckles all over his body. He has like thick hair, and I've seen anybody with that much freckles before. And you see like a couple here and there, but I had never seen that. And I was kind of scared.
Really?
Me and my dad, we always laugh about this now because it's like, he was like, oh, you thought I was like an alien or something.
Right.
I honestly, I was a little bit scared. I was like, what? I asked my adopted mom, I was like, is he okay? Like, is he a disease? Like, is okay? And my mom and my dad just kind of laughed and like, no, that's just his skin. He has freckles, you know?
Yeah.
It's just such a funny moment to me. Yeah, I always laugh about that because I've never seen.
That's funny. That's hilarious.
Anybody with so much freckles before. So
yeah. And one of my scary moments of walking into our house was my family had a tiny little Bashan white dog.
Oh yeah.
Terrified.
Oh,
oh gosh, I was terrified. I was running I'm like, what is this? Why do you have a dog in your house? Because in Sierra Leone, you don't really keep pets like that. Back then, like, you didn't really have pets.
The
dogs were
for
outside.
The streets.
They were for the streets, so you don't really play with them because they would bite you.
Right.
So that's my experience with dogs. And then I'm living with a dog now, and I'm like, what is this? Like, he needs to get... And he was just trying to say hi, like, who's this new person in our house? You know, just to like sniff me out and figure out who I am. Right. But I was not having it. I was running and screaming from that dog. But I ended up loving him after, you know, once he wasn't much of a threat. I ended up just like...
Did you like understand?
They did. They
understood,
did. Right. Understood. And my mom was such a trooper in like just trying to, you know, teach things about
Right.
being in, being in the States and figuring out life. So she was always the one talking to me and trying to, she's like, he won't, it's okay. See, he won't hurt you. Like,
Aww.
yeah.
That's sweet. I actually had a similar experience too with pets. Like my family had a cat. His name, her name was Mittens, or his, I don't remember. But their name was Mittens. And this is like when I moved to America. I was like an older cat. And I remember I was like sitting, I understand the concept of cats. Like it just having house cats, it just didn't make sense to me. I was like, this is weird. And I remember sitting in the kitchen table and the cat went on my lap. And I freaked out. I took the cat and like I threw him. I threw the cat and I was so scared. And I was so scared.
The poor cat.
I
didn't know what was
so
coming.
freaking scared. But anyways, yeah, that was a weird experience, and I think I might have traumatized the cat.
Probably.
Probably.
We had cats too, but I didn't see them until later. But I don't know, because they kind of stayed. I didn't worry about them too much. And later
cats.
on, they didn't hop on my lap like that, or not that I remember anyway. What was your first American food that you tried?
Ooh, oh my gosh. I think the first American food I tried, ironically, I actually didn't try it in America. I tried it in Sierra Leone.
I think I know what you're going to say.
Which is pizza.
Oh, girl, yes.
Okay, so in Sierra, at the orphanage, there was we had the director, I don't know, I think she's like the coordinator, PR person, white lady from America. Her name, we called her Mommy Deanna.
Yeah, Deanna.
It's Deanna. All the kids loved her. We'd all be like, trying to get close to her and talk to her. I remember, I think the days, I don't know if it was Mommy Deanna that brought pizza or if it was one of the adopters.
It was our, I remember my mom was part of the group. It was a group of adoptees.
Okay.
And, parents that came to the orphanage, and the parents, they pulled aside and they bought us pizza. If that's what you're talking about.
I think I remember it being.
Oh, it was like everybody, because they bought it for the whole orphanage. Yeah,
I being a whole group thing. And I remember I was like so excited, like, oh, like American food. At this point, like I was very malnourished, even in the orphanage, right? I barely had food for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, so I was like super excited. I remember trying the pizza, and I was like, oh my god, like. It tasted disgusting. It tasted like mold, like fungus. Like I was like the cheese because in our culture we didn't really eat a lot of like milk products, dairy products, and so it was just a very foreign thing to eat cheese. On
bread and with sauce on it. I would say that's my first food that I tried too that I was just disgusted by. And I'm just sitting there and I'm like, I'm supposed to eat this. I tasted it. I'm like, and somebody was like, you don't like it? I'm like, like this at all. But now pizza, go like this hand in hand. we best friends.
Sis, pesto
I love me some pizza. Ooh.
Pizza is like bomb. And I'll tell you what, like when I moved, like me and my family, we joke about this. My adopted family is because when I first moved to America, like my stomach handle a lot of American food. I didn't like the flavor because a lot of American food lacks sauce and taste. For
better not upset Americans now.
I mean, for back then. But so for the longest time, all I ate was white rice
and chicken.
With sometimes chicken, but white rice, and there was this like Asian sauce, Safeway, and a bunch of pepper flakes just dumped on top of it. Like a stir rice. That's all I ate for so long.
Yeah, for me, similar. It was white rice and chicken. That was it. I can't remember how long that lasted until I started trying other stuff, but it was basically white rice and chicken.
So I'm curious to know, when it comes to religion, do you want to maybe speak on, I know that you talked to me previously about your parents adopting as a missionary act at first anyways. Do you want to speak on that?
When it comes to religion, back in Sierra Leone, my family was Muslim, so I considered myself to be Muslim because I practiced religion with them. And then when I went to the orphanage, it's a Christian orphanage, so they push Christianity heavily. So that's when I started to convert to Christianity. And then when I came to the States, I just became full Christian. My first school was a private Christian school, and it's a heavily based missionary school. So that's where my parents got the idea, wanting to adopt and taking on that missionary act. Some of it, I don't want to Some of it, my parents have admitted this now, so when I hope that when they
It's
see
not
this,
news.
they don't feel slighted or anything. But a lot of it was kind of white saviorish. A lot of the missionary stuff, I'm not gonna lie, it was a lot of white saviorish type of thing going on. And my parents did admit that. They like that was, and I'm glad that they were able to see that and correct it. What about you?
Sierra Leone, like you said, the religion we practiced in the orphanage was Christianity. And I remember when I was in the orphanage, me and God were like this. And pre-orphanage, my dad's side was Muslim. So they went to, but I wasn't with my dad. I probably met my birth dad, a handful amount of times, right? And so I was with my birth mom. And my mom, she was Christian, but we didn't, because we had so much disruption in our lives, we didn't really go to church consistently. Would be running all the time for safety. And so when I went to the orphanage, I was just heavily involved in the Christian religion and practices, and I was just so close to God, and God was like my everything. That's all I knew. We were almost forced to be Christians, to be honest with you. If we didn't go to church, we get abused and whipped and all this kind of stuff. You know what I mean? It wasn't really a choice at this point. When I was in the orphanage, I went through a lot of abuse, and I was there for about 3 years. And I remember there was a moment when certain abuse happened. We're going to get to it later in different topics, more in depth. But it's something that kept on happening over and over and over again. And I remember in this moment just feeling so betrayed by God.
Really?
I was best friends with God. I was praying every day. But in this moment, it was a dramatic scene to me. And it's almost like a scene in a movie. It's so stuck in my head. And in this moment, it was pouring, it was raining. The trauma and the abuse had just happened. And I remember going up to staff members and I was asking them for help. And they're like, oh no. They were shooing me away. They wanted to turn a blind eye to it. They were like, just go back downstairs with the rest of the kids. And I was like, I felt so abused. I was like, God, I'm a child of yours. I'm going through all this abuse. The elders don't listen to me. They don't want the best for me. I'm not safe. I'm being abused every single day. And so I remember going upstairs. I snuck upstairs and I went on the patio and it was raining. And I felt in that moment, God was talking to me and the rain was pouring and coming into the patio. And I was just went down on my knees. And I basically had this moment with God as an 8-year-old, 8-year-old. And I told God on that day that I was going to break up with him.
Oh my God.
I was like, God, I don't believe in you anymore. I'm going to break up with you. Obviously, you don't want the best for me. You're letting all this abuse happen. I'm a child. I'm innocent. This is so painful. It was a very surreal moment. And so I was like, I'm not going to be a Christian anymore. I didn't know what not being a Christian meant, honestly, or not believing in God.
I felt like being a kid in Sierra Leone and just maybe African nations in general, have a deep connection to God. We're very
that's all we know. It's like breathing air. That's the relationship with God we have.
Because at age 5, I knew who God was.
Right.
I had created that relationship too. Here it might be different, but
and
deep connection.
I had that deep connection. I was like, I'm breaking up with you. So then fast forward, I came to America. And my adoptive family, they're actually a mix. My mom's side, they're Jewish. My adoptive mom's side, they're Jewish. They do a little bit of practicing, celebrate the holidays and whatnot. And then on my dad's side, he's part Native American. And so he practices the Jewish culture more so. And so then I actually ended up going to Hebrew school, participating in the Jewish culture and community. I had my bar mitzvah and everything. So it was completely different culture. I learned the Torah, I learned how to speak Hebrew. And so it's completely different than being Christian, right? The practices. And at this time, I was losing my concept and my connection with God because before a lot of it was spiritual and religion, but when I came to America, it was more so religion. You practice this, right? So I had told God I was breaking up with him when I was 8 years old, right? And I thought God had left me. But I do remember this time, and my adopted mom always, like, me and her talk about this. We reflect on this moment. In elementary school, in 2nd grade, my teacher, Miss Cohn, she was like, she had all the kids gather around and she was like, I want you guys to write on a piece of paper what you guys want to learn more about. And all the other kids are writing like dinosaurs. These are American kids. They're like dinosaurs, cars, all these materialistic things, right? And I wrote on my piece of paper, I said, I want to learn more about God. And
it's like you're going back.
I'm like going back and reflecting back on my relationship with God, because I didn't understand at this point what the purpose of God was. So that's been my journey. And now, and then after that, I lost my connection with God, but I'm finally at a place in my life where I'm able to rekindling my relationship with God. I know God has never left me. God has always been here. God has always answered my prayers, just not in the way that I thought he was doing.
God never does answer prayers.
He doesn't.
He never does. He never answers the way we think.
And I had this epiphany one time, Famata, where I was like, I just had this aha moment, and I was like, all this time I was praying to God when I was in the orphanage to make the pain go away, to stop the abuse, to get a better life. And here I got adopted. I didn't see it in that way until way later as an adult. That was God answering my message, my calling, just not in the timing that I had in my head. And that was
so beautiful.
It was a big,
so beautiful.
I was like, wow, I feel blessed.
It's definitely a blessing. Our adoption is definitely, it's a beautiful story, and a lot of it involves God. I don't consider myself to be a Christian. I'm more deeply spiritual, and I have a deep relationship with God, and I've always had one. God has always been in the middle of our adoption and our story.
Absolutely.
And the way we've been rescued, and all the prayers and things that we were asking for came true. So social engagement, I'm gonna have you start. Social engagement, people, when you came to America, and what have you? Like, you got something juicy, something good and funny.
Oh, I don't know. Social engagement. Let me just tell you, everything was flipped upside down, baby. When it comes to one thing, I remember was that in Sierra Leone, everyone is outside.
Yep.
Everybody is
sitting on the front, the porch.
They call it the veranda. Yeah. Everyone is on the porch. It is just like the whole community is just outside. When Americans out here, when they say we be outside, that's how they are in Sierra Leone. They're outside. And I remember coming here and I was like, it's kind of dead town here. Everyone is inside. You go outside even to the city and it's quiet. That was a little bit different for me.
No, I honestly, I could relate to that, because everybody, like in the suburbs, everybody's in their own house, and people are just in their cars in the garage, and it's just separated by family, and you can't just show up at anybody's house.
Right.
You can't you gotta make an appointment. In Sierra Leone, you just show up. You sit and you talk for hours, and you engage, you create community. So when it comes to sacrifices, that is one thing that we sacrifice. It wasn't here. It wasn't like that here in America. So we had to learn that. And it was kind of sad too. I remember feeling sad about it, because my mom, because I was asking, I'm like, why can't we do that? Why can't we just go to a friend's house and stuff like that? And I think my brother, who got adopted with me, he went over to a family's house, and he was just in their garage, just chilling. And he was out of something like that. And they sat us down and they were talking to us, so you can't just go over to people's houses like that.
Oh.
And it made me sad. I'm like, I want to interact with people in the way that we had.
Right. And I think also in America, as far as I think Sierra Leone, because all of us were going through pain together, we're like each other's ride or dies in a way. Community was very important. Out here, individualism is more praised than community. And I think that's a nonverbal thing, right? It's like everyone is for themselves, even within family, and out there, family is first, community first. And so when you come out here, I'm trying to be all buddy, and I'm being all myself, and people here are reserved because they're thinking about, they have a plan, an end game of how the interaction between us is going to help them and benefit them in the long run. That wasn't really like that in Sierra Leone as much. People are just themselves. They're welcoming. Everyone is just warm. And it's weird because you're going through so much pain, but you're able to be more soulful and connect with people more than people who are in America. Seem to have it all, but they're not able to connect on a deep level.
And I think it's partly because we didn't really have much in Sierra Leone, so all we really had was each other. So because we had that, we were able to just connect on a deeper level.
Right.
And I just miss the music, the dancing. I used to just put on these dancing shows for my grandma, my parents. I used to dance all the time.
Oh.
And just because we gather and we play music, we hang around.
You have shows just for dancing.
Yeah. So losing that was I remember just being really sad about it. There's one memory that I think about. I'm like, I just was like, oh,
Yeah.
Really, we don't get to do that here like
I
that.
know.
You can go to clubs and stuff and all that, but we were young, so it wasn't.
Yeah.
It's not the same.
It's not the same at all.
Yeah.
What about for you as far as, I know you moved to Minnesota. What about the weather, the environment? What was that like for you?
Yeah, no, for me it was different. It was just suburbs, and it was a very small town, really 14,000 people, and they have more people now, I think. I haven't been back in a long time, but it's cold. Like we said in our video, I don't know, never knew what cold and snow was. So it was snowy, it was cold, and I remember just being bundled and as much stuff as I can put on. But I was still very interested in the idea of cold. So I would go out. I actually went out more than I thought I was gonna be. I went out because I'm like, this feels so weird. I would literally just stand. I would literally just stand and feel my environment. And then during this time in our backyard, we have a community pond, and it gets frozen, and then we ice skate. So I went on. My parents were trying to teach me, you can go on there, you'll save. And I would step and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so weird. What is this? It's ice, it's frozen. What is this? It was very interesting. And like I said in the first video, I had to kind of like go in, and now I couldn't stay out for long periods of time because my skin would just start to hurt. It was like almost like accelerated frostbite in a way. So I had to like, okay, go back inside, come back and try again. But yeah, that was really it.
For me, weather-wise, it wasn't too bad. First few times where it was cold, of course, I felt the difference because it didn't really get that cold. In Sierra Leone, we have rainy season and then summer. Rainy season is the winter, right? It just rains a bunch.
And it's still hot and warm.
And it's still pretty warm. And so in Sierra Leone, in America, I had to get used to the cold a little bit. But other than that, the buildings were a little bit intimidating. I'm not gonna lie, because there was like a lot of tall buildings. I'd never seen so many tall buildings packed next to each other. And I would say that's pretty much all my experience in that area. Now, I want to get on this topic because I know this is something that you experience a lot. I experienced a little bit too, but which is downplaying downplaying our experience in Sierra Leone.
This is a fun way to close this episode out.
Yeah, just like kind of like how we downplayed our experiences and the reality of being in Sierra Leone, how we downplayed it to people in America just to fit in and
to
make
not
it seem,
feel embarrassed.
to not be embarrassed by.
So for me, when it comes to not being embarrassed, I remember downplaying the size of our house, thinking, oh, it's not that much different than my house in Sierra Leone. And I'm like, girl, stop it. My parents were like, girl, stop it, because that's so not true. And we were just doing that not to feel embarrassed, because we're like, we were ashamed a little bit of where we came from, and then just seeing what America's like. We were doing things like that to make it seem like, oh, it's not that big of a difference.
Right. And I remember like, you know, because people always have these jokes about like, oh, you're from Africa. How long did you have to go to get water? And all this. Some of their stereotypes were true, but I would be like, oh no, we had water. We always had
to get water.
We always had. But I was like, you have food. One thing I will say that the stereotype that wasn't true was having zebras just walking around and lions just walking around. That's some BS. Just stop it.
And Africa is just developing so fast, and things are so much different now too. So
that was just one thing that was kind of funny. But of course, we had to fit in, so we had to say what we had to say to fit in and make ourselves feel better for the moment. But right now, at this moment, we just laugh whenever stuff like that gets brought up, because we're not even gonna. We don't feel the need to lie or make up stories. Like, yeah, we came from poverty. We came from the bottom of the bottom, but we know at the end of the day, it's not even about where you start at all whatsoever. It's about what you make of your circumstance and your situation. So, and sometimes your grief story is what actually puts you up to the top.
Yes, absolutely. That's the end of this episode. Yes. Thank you so much for tuning in again. We appreciate you guys so much.
Thank you.
And what do you always say?
Don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to follow, and also don't forget to share.